Welcome to Accelerate My Practice. So glad you could join me here today. Today I've got a special guest with me and we're going to be talking about internet security and how secure and safe is all of your patient data. Can your people see it? Do they have is it vulnerable? Is there a risk? And I brought in what looks to be a hacker sitting next to me. He's from Russia. Totally kidding. Charles Kaplan, who is an absolute expert and genius when it comes to internet security. And we're going to talk a little bit today about how all this functions, the role it plays, and some examples of people who are at great risk. So thank you so much for joining me today and making the long trip here all the way from Boston to Colorado. And,
Happy to be here, Darren.
It kind of looks like we're out in outer space today, which is kind of fun. Kind of works really well with this whole security cyber thing. The only thing to make it cooler is if we had someone in the back doing one of these things. So tell me about how Data Guardians Pro, which is what the company you're part of and one of the founders of, how did you come to be in the first place?
Yeah, absolutely. Myself and pretty much everyone at DGP, we've all been working in computer security for 15 to 25 years, typically an enterprise background, right, selling to large banks, large financials, public sector, government, health and human services, water, electricity, all the usual kind of high-value targets that have invested in security going back 20 years to the early days of the internet. But it wasn't really a very democratic process. If you looked at who had high value assets these days, and by high value I mean something I can sell on the black market. Medical records are one of the highest values out there, about $50 a record for a patient's record with their health profile, their history. It's worth about $50 in the black market. A credit card number, 50 cents to $1. And so huge incentive to go after medical. We've all heard of things like the big Anthem data breach a year and a half ago, a couple 100,000 records, a couple million records stolen. But we were really looking at, hey, how do we protect a small dentist, a small ophthalmologist, a chiropractor, someone who has 5,000 records, but they're medical records. And 5,000 records is a boatload of money on the black market. So we got together and said, how can we take what we've done at the enterprise, which typically sells for $10,000, $20,000, $50,000 a month, and bring it down to a price point for the small practitioner?
So if you've got 5,000 records at $50,000 a pop, is that $250,000?
Well, $50 a pop.
Sorry, $50 a pop,
Yeah.
but times 5,000 records. So your database to somebody from Russia who's hacking it is worth $250,000. And the reason why that's important to understand is because a lot of dentists think that, hey, I'm not really a target. I'm just a dentist in the middle of somewhere nowhere, and who's going to come after me? Well, the reason why they're going to come after you is because your database is worth, if you have 5,000 records, and remember, it's not just your active base, it's how many records are in your database total. So very realistic to have 5,000 or more, but to grab that, and you're going to be an easier target than Bank of America, it's worth $250,000. And I think that's, one, that's staggering to me, but two, it's interesting because it's got to be a thought where a lot of doctors are like, I'm just not a target.
Well, it's actually worse than that because while that's the street value of what those records might bring, the cost to you if you have a data breach is actually closer to $225 per patient record by the time you go through civil lawsuits, class action lawsuits, the state comes by with their handout, you have to pay for remediation. The average is about $230 per patient record. So if you have 5,000 patient records in your database, that's over $1 million it's going to cost you to recover. Not to mention, all the stats say about 50% of your patients are going to leave you because they're just going to go to the guy next door who might not be any more secure, but at least it wasn't you. You're going to be tied up in court for months, if not years. That's time you're not practicing dentistry. You're talking about a huge exposure. I mean, odds are you will go out of business and go bankrupt if you have to pay out from one of these breaches. So think about that.
Here's your doctors from Southwest. I mean, these are normal, everyday people. It's Dr. Howard Jarvis and Tiffany Goldwyn. And I've not had any conversation with these people, so they don't know I'm even talking about them. But this is public domain stuff. It's no surprise you can find this. 1,980 records that were hacked out of this practice. Sort of sad to see. Another one I look at, one of the bigger ones, there was a implant dental center with 11,000 records. And I'm not even going to try and pronounce this guy's name. Dr. David, he's the one in the middle who owns the practice. And his last name is just really awesome. We'll go with Dr. Henry, who's sitting there right next to him. And the lady's name I didn't find, so I'm not sure if she came in after. And I don't, in all disclosure, I don't know if all these doctors, the associates were there at the time when these things took place. But 11,000 records were hacked in this office. You know, another one, King of Prussia Dental Associates, 16,228 records. I mean, this is their entire, these are normal everyday people. It's not like these are high profile. I mean, this is a big practice here, but these other ones are relatively small practices that are at great risk. And I don't know what the outcomes of these stories were in terms of liability or amounts paid out. Don't know any of those things. But it's just interesting to look at how it's real people. As much as people think it's not, it couldn't be me because I'm just this little person. You being a little person actually puts you at greater risk because you are assuming you're not at great risk.
That's right. Anthem Medical, I mean, they had tens of millions of dollars of security controls and they were hacked. Odds are, you know, of all the dentists, I've spoken to a couple hundred over the past year, they have little to no controls in place. They have little to no policy in place. At best, we see they bought a HIPAA binder at a trade show. It's still sitting there up on the shelf, still with the shrink wrap on. It's not helping them.
You know, you bring up a great point. So everybody thinks, hey, I can go get the ADA HIPAA binder for $299 and I can fill out some form, I can have a security officer, and I'm HIPAA compliant. How real is that when it comes to electronic records?
Well, first, there's no actual protection from what you did. I mean, in terms of protecting your patient's privacy. Second, that's really not at all what the law asks for. Those binders are pretty much a reprint of information you can download off the Federal Register. And that's only a small part of what the law says. It says you must train your employees on best practices every year. Same as with sterilization, same as with everything else. Every year you have to have a re-education. It's not complicated, but it's the little things like don't send text messages with personally identifiable information on them. It's perfectly fine to send a text and say, reminder about your appointment tomorrow at 2. It's a complete violation to say, a reminder that you're going to have a cavity drilled tomorrow at 2. And by the way, it says here you're HIV positive. Make sure you bring in a clearance note from your doctor. That's a huge HIPAA violation. So there's training that covers that stuff every year. There is a risk assessment. It's 150 to 200 questions tailored to the dental profession about what are your policies and procedures and practices. Then there's an ongoing management component, 24/7 security monitoring. It's kind of like if you buy a security alarm but you don't arm it, we sit there and we put a on-premise security appliance and then we monitor it 24/7. So all of those pieces are part of what it takes to be HIPAA compliant. And it's, anyone who's saying you only need A or B or C is not looking out for you. They're looking into how do I sell A or B or C.
How does this device work? What does it do that allows you to save my bacon?
Right. So everyone's pretty much heard of a firewall. And a firewall at this point is almost more like a kitchen colander strainer. It's designed to let originally everything out, nothing in. But as soon as you start, I'm going to go and download information off of Facebook. I'm going to get emails from my friends. Every time you bring one of those emails in, it's poking a little hole through the firewall or a hole in that colander. It brings stuff onto the network. One of the things our appliance does, and that's one of 1,000 attack scenarios.
And that's how Hillary got compromised.
Yes.
That was exactly how she was compromised.
Phishing email to John Podesta, that exact kind of situation. And so the good thing about this is there's, teams of hundreds of people throughout the world that work on finding these bogus sites. They put them into a real-time database. And one of the things we do is every time you go out to the internet, we're scrubbing that traffic to say, are you going to one of these sites, one of these phishing sites? Are you going to one of these? There's another kind of attack called a drive-by attack. Are you going to one of these sites which has a drive-by attack? Are you going to one of these sites? And there's dozens and dozens of these. And the box actually sits there in real time. You won't even know it's there, scrubs the traffic. We actually get alarms sent up to us. And so if we see the very adamant person who says, I really want to go to and follow this link and I keep getting a blocked page, we'll actually see them trying it over and over. We'll pick up the phone and call and say, hey, just so you know, you're actually under attack and you should not be doing this. Look at the email a little more closely.
What if all of a sudden in the middle of the night, my server just starts dumping huge amounts of data somewhere?
Yep, we watch for that as well. And one of the great things about the dental profession, if you would, in terms of security is, I don't know too many dentists that work at 4 a.m. I mean, I'm sure there's a couple out there, but in general, we track the hours the practice is open and we watch the bandwidth going out to the internet during business hours and outside of hours. And if we see a large spike of traffic outside of business hours, and we can even look at, is it going to China, is it going to Russia, is it going to Germany, and we know that you're a little dentist in Southern California, we can actually just stop that traffic right in its tracks. And it's one of the things we do talk to the doctors about of, hey, do you want us to call you first? Do you want us to make a best assumption and just stop it? What do you want us to do? Because there is always that very, very slight risk that we cut off something legitimate.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time to come here, come all the way to Colorado to spend time with us and to share with our clients and a message that I think is wildly important and valuable, and I hope everyone out there enjoys the message. So, special recording. We'll probably re-air this thing later so you can tell that this isn't live because we are shooting this on a Friday because he wasn't available. So I appreciate all of you taking the time. We will see you next Monday, 8 o'clock Mountain, 10 o'clock on the East Coast. Until then, have a wonderful day. What if you could have the practice of your dreams? What's holding you back? Imagine a life where you have everything you ever wanted.